Second run of the men's discipline here in Sigulda. It is our 7th IBA Special Luge World Cup, and emotions are heightened this weekend as this is the final World Cup to get these athletes' bids going for Beijing. A quick look at the conditions. It's getting slightly warmer. We're hovering around 0.6 Celsius. We were a little bit around 0 with our first run. We can see some snow coming in with our track. Hello everyone, I'm Kate Hansen. I'm joined with Sam Edney, silver medalist from Pyeongchang Olympics. Sam, what do you think will be the effect with that snow with this track?
Well, it's pretty covered here in Latvia and Sigulda, so I don't think it's going to have a huge impact. There might be a couple sections where you might get some wind blowing in there, but not a huge factor.
Not a huge factor. The weather will stay consistent. It's just always cold in Latvia. But quick look at our top rankings right now. Dominic Fishnoller is tied with Felix Locke, currently in second place. Similar look to our standings from last year. Dominic was in third and Felix actually won last year. But those two are tied for silver. And then Christers Apriode's hometown boy is currently in first, winning. So we'll see how this second race shakes out. He's currently in the lead by, let's double check it. He's currently in the lead by 48 thousandths of a second. So it's going to be quick racing. It's going to be fast, especially with this hard ice staying consistent. But a quick look at our start list. We'll have Reid Watts starting us out from Canada, and then we will progress from the worst to first. So this will be tight racing. There's not that much time separating the top 5. I think we're about 0.2 from 5th to 1st. Sam, do you think there will be some shuffling in the mix, or do you think this is how the race will end as well?
No, guaranteed that there will be some shuffling. Sigulda has so many elements that can change things in a dime, right? We saw it with a couple athletes in the first run that runs will just go sideways in a matter of a split second. So I think we'll see some shuffling. It's going to be great.
Reid Watts starting us out. First run just was pure disappointment from him. He's looking for the consistency going into Beijing. He'll be the only sled representing Canada in China. Ooh, some early issues right there. Some just sliding immediately. Do you think that was from lines, or do you think this is the beginning of a setup issue? Excuse me.
Yeah, that's a bit of a combination right there. It might be a bit of an experience around the line. That curve 1-2 transition can be tricky if you're off there a bit, but you should be able. This is definitely more of a line or a sled setup issue. He could be over here, hangs on through corner 14, but this is not the run that Reid wanted. I mean, you come after that first run with a disappointing run, and you want that redemption run, and this is not it. He's going to have to step away from the track, talk to the coaches, figure out what the strategy is going into the next 2 races prior to Beijing.
Sled was all over the place. It really just comes down to more of a confidence issue, I feel, this late in the season. Right there, he's just no grip at all, doesn't even have any traction.
Yeah, and that's in corner 1, which is like, if you don't nail the entrance there, you can have a bit of a loop, but you should be able to catch the sled. He's not even having any grip going through corner 1, which to me, it's just on the edge.
Luckily for him, this won't affect his bid for Beijing, but nonetheless, it's still just going in. You want momentum. You want to be able to at least pull your best result at the Olympics, and it's just such a big, everybody tunes in around the world, and you want to be able to show your best stuff. So hopefully Reid can find that momentum in his final 2 World Cups of the season. But speaking of momentum, a huge loss of it. Jonas Mueller almost crashed last run, if I'm remembering correctly, or at least it was a really messy run. He has the speed. He has some World Cup wins under his belt, so it was uncharacteristic for him to come up this behind the leader. But it's a big story for Team Austria this weekend. They have 1 spot left to give for Beijing.
Yeah, and that first run was it was sloppy, a couple sections the whole way down, and so he just didn't have the speed. And when you're talking about a position at the Olympics, you can't have those, and unfortunately it's probably going to put him out of the contention. I'm not really sure. Well, I guess we'll see how things shake out, but a bit better run going here for Jonas. Stronger midsection, and then now through out of corner 15 up into Kreisel, corner 16. He's definitely going to have a lead over Reed with Reed's sloppy run, but just not quite where Jonas wanted to be at the end of the day.
48.513. That would have put him in the top 10 for his first run. I'm sure when he's going to look back at times, it's going to hurt just a little bit right there. Just kind of kissing that right wall. Couldn't get away from it. He might be able to move up some spots, but we'll have to see. But again, yeah, that time right there would have put him in the top 10 or sitting around 8th place. Has that happened to you, Sam, before, where you look back? Is that, does that give you more confidence knowing that you had the speed, or does it just make you feel worse that you didn't get the spot that you wanted?
Definitely there's disappointment right away, and you have to kind of, accept those emotions and then take the positive on to the next week, take that confidence. Okay, you've got a sled that can run quickly when you need it to. You just need to be the one that's consistent. So there's always something to move forward with it.
And consistency is something that these first, 5, 6, 7 sleds are going to be looking for. A lot of them just had rough runs. Lucas Guffler, first sled from Italy, doesn't have the fastest start times. Let's talk about the start for a second. How does this start play into, these races? It seems flatter. Who does that favor? What do these men think about this start?
Yeah, it's, flat, long start. So it's going to favor those who are strong, quick starters right off the bat. And then knowing that it's sort of two wide open corners, you can definitely take that velocity advantage and carry that the entire way down. The problem is there's all these little sections along the way where you can scrub speed. You can have a skid in corner 3, you can have a skid 4, 5, 6. And then the labyrinth can prove to be tricky, as we've seen today. And then once all of a sudden a couple of small skids in that top section, you're even with the guys who might be a bit slower, but just more compact, better drivers on the way down. So it is there. The advantage is there for the quick starters, but you can definitely lose it pretty quick.
Good look in his 1415, excuse me. He's slightly looking, then drops his head. I wonder if, there still is that weird little bump out of 15. You can see a little bit of sideways movement for some of these sleds. We'll have to see as this race transpires. It affected some of those Latvian sleds, but it wasn't really as noticeable for the other sleds, right, Sam? Did you notice it for anyone else?
Yeah, you didn't really notice it for a lot of the sleds, or they just handled it much smoother, I guess, right? And that's maybe what we'll see in the second run. Is it going to catch some guys off guard, or is it maybe going to, the Latvians are going to be that much more well prepared for it now? They'll handle it. They're going to know that if they're on that same line, just let it run. Just as soon as you're coming on the exit of 15, really just open the hands, let the legs run.
Matvey Podestoronin from Russia, currently sitting 28th. He finished 17th last week in Winterberg. He has the capability, but sometimes with these younger athletes, it's just finding that consistency. Ooh, seems like there was a little bit of pressure. That first curve, is it technical for these men's sleds, or is it kind of just lay there and be still? It's a
tough entrance cut. The corner 1 is definitely more favored towards the bob ramp side, and so you have to, as a luge sled, give it a hard cut right before you enter on the corner, and then support it right away, and so you can miss that entry drive, and then it throws it off right away. And because you're going so slow, there's no pressure to hold you to the corner. It can be easy to slide off or to loop it, but that's sort of one of the, it's not a super tricky. You just need runs, get used to it, find that right section to cut it, and then you're good.
All over the place, out of 15, kind of sent him in a little bit of a tailspin. He was trying to guide it straight, Matvey was, but it just, here was a little bit of a beginning of it seems like.
Yeah, sort of not as much of an issue as the first run. I remember he was skidding around on the first run quite a bit. He's just sort of finding that balance, and I think this is one of those scenarios where, maybe he got caught off guard by the ice conditions. Maybe they firmed up a bit compared to his final training session, went in with a bit too much confidence, thinking he could risk it or ride the same setup he was training on, and this is the outcome, is some skidding and some not so great runs, and take it as a young athlete, take it and learn from it and move forward into the next races and into further races here in Latvia.
Hopefully these athletes can remember. I mean, I remember coming back to these tracks year after year and trying to, be specific on what happened the year before. It's, you can write these things down, keep a journal, kids. If you're watching these races, keep notes of your runs. Up next, we've got our Swedish Sliders, Svante Kohala. I mean, with Scandinavia, you would think that we would have deep programs. It baffles me that we don't have a Norwegian slider or a Finnish slider or a Danish slider, but yet we have Alexander Ferlazzo from Australia. Luge just attracts people from all over the world. It's so interesting, though, that we don't have the depth from Scandinavia.
Yeah, it'd be great to see them, making a bit of a charge back and utilizing Norway. The Norwegian program, I know, has got some athletes in the junior age category, but it'd be ideal to start seeing those names at the World Cup, Senior World Cup level and at the Olympic field level, obviously. And this is maybe the start of it with Svante.
Svante looked like overall clean run, nothing too huge. He comes up half a tenth behind. Didn't seem as excited for his run. And again, we mentioned it in the first run. We don't know the qualifications for Sweden specifically. Hopefully they, can be generous with their spots this year. But again, I mean, these countries, oh wow, almost big slip at the bottom right there. What did you think about this, Sam?
Yeah, some sections to tidy up for sure as a younger athlete. Experience will come into play every time he comes back to Latvia. Just small little errors that eat up time. They just bite into your overall combined time.
Unfortunately,
it is definitely strange to see that whole straightaway without people. Normally, in a normal scenario, you'd see that line 3, 4, 5 people deep, which is such a great atmosphere. That lower section, you hear it as an athlete as you're going by.
It's interesting. I mean, do you know a little bit of the background with Luge and Latvia? I feel like, these Latvian sleds, Arturs Darznieks up next, speaking of, they're so popular here. It's not like there's a ton of huge athletes coming out of Latvia. So these sliders, are very well known. People know who they are.
For sure. I mean, it's a big sport. It's produced medals the past 3 Olympics, I believe. And that's actually maybe 4, because in 2006 there was also Martins Rubenis was on the podium. So, this track is producing some of the best sliding athletes out of the world, and so it really is the country has jumped behind the sliding sport specifically. It's where they've seen a lot of success, and so why not? And as a kid, if that's what you're watching on a weekend, whether it's a luge race, a skeleton race, a bobsled race, that's something to aspire to chase after, and it's just going to fill the athlete pool, and for futures to come, it's going to be an awesome sliding nation.
And not to mention the bobsled and skeleton programs also just packed. I mean, Dukers, these guys are on commercials in these countries. Right here, some big issues out of 14. He kind of held his feet down for a while. Do you think that was necessary? Do you think he was just trying to find that safe line?
Yeah, just trying to, probably salvage what's left. It's probably a disappointing day for Arturs. For sure, it's a disappointing day. And I think sometimes when you've had such a bad run, when you've got your hopes so high, I think it's almost hard to get that mental, get back into the race mentally. I feel like that's a bit of what that run was. The disappointment was still fresh in his mind. Maybe he knows something we don't know about Olympics and Olympic berths, and he's missed out. And so it's sort of like, what is this run worth, unfortunately.
Well said, especially for finishing 4th last year on his home track. So it hurts the most when you have the speed and you can do it, and it just didn't line up for that day. First Ukrainian sled, Andrei Manzi at the handles, currently sitting 25th. He kind of has consistent results around the 24-25 range. Although speed might not be there for him, gotta hand it to him just to be able to drive cleanly. I mean, even some of these athletes that are fast can't find the consistency that we've seen with this Ukrainian sled.
Yeah, and Andre, he had a rough first run there in the bottom section. Let's see if he cleans it up through this lower half. They can tend to run a bit risky as well with the setup. So if he makes it through clean here, 11-12. Nice line in 13. He got it turned. Again, those feet tapping, just low feet. That's probably a problem that he hears every run by the coaches. Pick up your feet, Andre. Pick up your feet.
Clean transition. Yeah, clean transition into Kreisel. Still 3/10 back behind. But I liked that line in Kreisel. We've seen a lot of movement for these sleds, a lot of looping, we'll call it, up and down. But his was nice and even.
Yeah, and sometimes those are the lines, you think it looks fast and just maybe he's driving too much. Maybe the drive was too hard and then he had to cut really under with the hold so that the sled doesn't drop. And then that's all of those drives are preventing, creating friction, preventing speed. So it's such a fine line of how much you want to drive, when you need to drive, and finding that balance.
I think
also there's the, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, also maybe Andre went up there after the first run, told his coaches, hey, or made the decision, I had no grip, we need to sharpen up, and then all of a sudden that bites into the speed as well.
Interesting point. Yeah, because I was going to say, for a lot of these athletes, it's just such a hard part of the sport is finding, the relationship between setup and ice. And it's just, I feel like it's never really appropriately conveyed when I'm watching races because there's so much that goes on just to even get ready for these runs. And so Josef Nittis, for example, Slovakia, he's had years to know how to prepare. Because how much time would you say you spent on your sled before each race?
Oh, it varies, I think, depending how well training went during the week compared to how much speed I think I had left in the runners. So there's lots of, there was weeks where if the sled was running well, I tried to keep hands off, just let it go, Whereas if I needed to find some speed, then I'd work extra hard on the sled for sure.
Some issues right there out of 14. Ooh, big one out of 15. Big hit on the right wall.
Yeah, he's off now, line there, but gets it back under control in 16. Not the way he wants to wrap up his week here.
You can see that head shake. 1700th back. Quick look. Ooh, yeah, right there. Some issues at the top already.
Yeah, 11 can be so tricky, right? It's just, you got to nail that entrance drive, and if you then miss the hold under, you'll see some sleds that they might just pick up and then they're dropping right away. You got to see you want a high line, but it's got to be a flat line through there.
I love how you explain, though, working with your sled, it's just such a relationship with your sled and knowing how it goes fast and how it doesn't. But you'd think that there would just be one company. I remember when I was, getting into this, why isn't there just one company that just makes all the sleds? And it's fair across the board. They're all the same. Where do you think, it kind of strayed into that? Because there's so many other sports where it just comes down to athletic ability, but so much of luge and these sliding sports comes down to knowledge of these tracks and these sleds.
Right. It's historically, I think the sport has just always been like that. I know there's a movement and there is a direction the FIL is going towards to a standardized sled so that it's, a more equal playing field in terms of the technology available to everyone. It's almost, there's an unfair advantage for, say, the Germans who have a larger budget, who have all the information over years and years of sliding knowledge, and they can design something that they know is going to be fast, or they have the budget to blow some money on a sled and it doesn't work, compared to Australia, for example, who would have a fraction of the budget and no opportunity to develop a new sled. So there's a big divide between nations, but I believe there's talk and the plan is already in place. The things are rolling to get that, to remedy that.
Alexander Ferlazzo makes it down the track, was currently sitting 23rd. That was very well said. You really put it into perspective very well right there. Australia, Alexander, it's not like he has these extra funds to really test certain things out, but then Germany does. I'll be curious to see over time, how that impacts the sport, or, where that differs. Because it seems like in skeleton and bobsled, things are a little more neutral across the board. Right,
and that's a good shot of Alex coming out of the curve 14 there, and speaking about it, Alex is in a partnership with the U.S., right? So now he's working with the U.S. and getting, resources through the U.S. coaches, through maybe he's on a U.S. sled, maybe he worked out a lease agreement for that, or I know he used to work with Duncan Kennedy on a KRS sled. So there's definitely, it's a tight-knit community. There's opportunity to get better sleds. You might just not be on the Felix Locke sled or the Dominic Fishnoller sled.
Valley Cray 2 currently sitting 22nd, which is the exact place that he got last year in Sigulda. And that kind of brings up another thought to me too, even if you swapped sleds with someone, could you still take it down, right? Because so many sleds feel so different. Could it be interchangeable like that, or does everybody slide so differently that maybe it needs to be specific technology for each athlete?
That's the big question. I know that there's guys that do. Personally, I had an opportunity to take a Russian sled down. I didn't jump on it because it was the last race before the Pyeongchang Olympics. I didn't want to go down that avenue of find a sled that was either faster than mine or throw me off my game completely. But I know that some athletes are able to jump on one sled, they'll go on to another totally different setup, and they'll be able to take it down fine. Some others, it might throw off their game. Look at a guy like Dominic. He's got so much natural talent. When his sled was held back in China, he had no issues, right? He jumped onto Lucas's sled or a spare sled or whatever it was and won a World Cup. So it just shows you, I think there's pure natural talents that can take anything down and make anything fast, and there's other guys that need to work a little bit harder.
I didn't even really think about Dominic until now, and you're totally right. I mean, for Dominic to do that, I think it was Leon Felder's sled, and to win a sprint, I think. Did he win I think he won a sprint cup on someone else's sled. And speaking of dealing with sleds, trying to figure it out, I mean, that expression right there, I wonder if he was just, I couldn't tell if he...
There you go.
It's been a fun ride. If this is it, love you guys. Thanks for following.
This is it. Thanks for following. Love you guys. Love Chris's energy. I know it's been so tough for him the past few months, but deep inside, he still has that spirit, still loves to slide. He's looking for, it's an interesting spot for the Americans really quick before you get into his run. He has to finish a top 16 to get his full tier. The Americans might only get 2 sleds going into Beijing this year, so it depends on how the other countries do, but this is a pretty crucial run for Mazur, which was kind of why he said his little tribute before he went down.
Yeah, and right away, that put him in a mindset. You can see Chris is having a great run. A bit off there in 13, 14, he's back under control, but this guy always just brought a smile to everyone's face. Every race in and out. He had a light feel, a little bit of issues there, big issues into 16. Wow, super high. Until that 15, that was such a great run going. Just what I think you want to end on your race week, potentially a career. Chris, it's been a pleasure to watch you race.
It's been a fun career. I just want him to keep talking. That's all she wrote. Gotta love him. Chris, well, we love you. You had an incredible career. Sounds like, these Olympics were the last for him, but there still could be a chance. We'll have to see how the race shakes out for his bid going into Beijing. I know the doubles didn't work out how he wanted, but nonetheless, he's been a little bit of a legend in the sport. Everybody loves Chris. Everyone's happy when Chris does well, so it's been hard, I'm sure, for a lot of people to kind of see this degrading a little bit of just, his body and his sled tech and just trying to figure it out. So anyways, we love you, Chris. You did incredible.
Love for Chris.
Up next, Ukraine, Anton Dukac, currently sitting in 20th. Last year he finished around 23rd, so a lot of these countries are just kind of looking for that representation, because we mentioned it earlier, a lot of countries don't even get into the World Cup, so to see 2 sleds from Ukraine, it's pretty cool.
Very cool, and very nice run there so far in the top section for Anton, and this is a big run for Anton. We're not knowing where he kind of sits right now, and knowing that Andre, they're probably only going to qualify one quota spot for the Olympics, so it's sort of duking it out between the two of these Ukrainian guys who are probably pretty good friends, having traveled together for the past 8 or 10 years. Nice run down in the bottom, obviously drip falling behind a bit behind Artur's, but overall he's got to be pleased with this run if he can get through 16 clean.
Comes up just 13 thousandths back. He's in second place ahead of his teammate Andre Manzi. Not sure how their qualifications shake out for Ukraine, but it could be how you said they're only going to be taking one. Maybe this race was the one that decided it.
Yeah, it's a tough thing, right? You've got two athletes who are very capable of sliding within that top 32 week in and week out. They've proven it this year, and yet, you know, only one of them will qualify to go into the Olympic Games. Possibly, I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the where Anton or where Andre sit overall.
Still celebrating some of our Christmas decorations in Sigulda. I mean, with that weather, it kind of feels like Christmas all winter. We've got our first German sled, Sebastian Blay, one of those kind of fifth starters where, you know, he'll kind of come in, do well in Nations Cup. He's making his first appearance here in Sigulda. He did show up in Altenburg Nations Cup, but these German athletes, when they're not on the circuit, they're just training consistently at home. I believe he's from Oberhof. So whenever the circuit goes to Oberhof, he always will get his chance to make it onto the scene. But so far, he's in the green. He's got some time to play with.
Yeah, nice run going here for Sebastian. Really nice curve 13. Sets up a curve 14 where it's easy. You just get that nice cross, get some height, and then you just let the sled run out and you can go into that aerodynamic position. Keeps it calm out of curve 15 into 16. A little wave, which isn't the end of the world if you control it. Hits on the exit. We haven't even talked about it because it's not happening this week, a team relay, but that exit of Kreisel is so key on a team relay week because you can have a couple hits in the walls before you even get to the pad, or you can throw you off your game completely and you miss the pad. So obviously they won't have to be dealing with it this weekend.
We've got our sprint competition this weekend. Still counts for World Cup points. I don't know, though. I mean, I think it would depend on each country if sprint this week will depict any of qualifications for Beijing. I would assume no, but also I'm not captain of a team, so we'll have to see. But yeah, we have sprint coming up this weekend. Good luck at Blay's second run. Nice and comfortable.
Really nice exit there.
Yeah, comfortable on the sled.
Looking really good on the sled.
You can see, you know, these German athletes, it's so competitive just within their own teams that it's like when they do get their shot, you know, at the big show, it's like they really just have to be perfect to get those second looks. But before I ask you this question that I'm really curious what you think about it, we've got Johnny Gustafson, American, currently sitting 18th, pulled a 4.631 start. Faster, 200s faster for his second run. Maybe this run will be cleaner for him. But what I wanted to ask Sam, what do you think will happen with Ludwig and Locke after these Olympics? Do you think that they're coming into the end of their...
Major rough transition there for Johnny, 5.6. Back online here for the Labyrinth. But yeah, as far as those two guys, I mean, that's quite a career both of them have had. I know both are, you know... well positioned to either continue for a year or two longer. It looks like they're both managing. Obviously, Johannes is still pulling some of the fastest starts, if not the fastest starts, week in and week out. So body-wise, I feel like he's good to go as long as he wants until that starts to break down. Felix, I feel like, you know, this is a good year. He's been trying to redeem this quad, get back into form that he was in prior to Pyeongchang and that disappointment of missing the medals there. But you know, who knows? It's going to be interesting to see the changeover after this quad. There's Johnny. Other than that issue in the section there with 5.6, pretty decent run.
And when you make that mistake at the top, it's just, you're just not going to be able to find the speed. We'll see if they show a look at it.
Yeah, so really rough on to 5, and then late, and then into 6, you just go straight to that woods section, and that feels rough. I know how fast that transition is. It's just a little tap on the feet there. Probably just those instabilities from that section of 5, 6. It's on your mind. It just happened a couple seconds ago, so you're still recovering.
Kevin Fishnoller up next. Italy currently sitting 17th. Now, for these athletes that are qualified or pre-qualified or are pretty comfortable in their Beijing spot, points will be a big part of this as well, right? Because I remember for Sochi, when I went to the Olympics, getting an A seed was huge because the ice was going to be so variable considering the weather. So, I could see, with Johnny Gustafsson, he wasn't excited about his run, but he still, most likely will be going to the Beijing Olympics. But do these athletes think about points? Were you thinking about points before you went to the games?
Yeah, this is a strange year because, normally by now we would have known, Christmas is usually when the qualification period ends. So you'd be the teams would all be allocated by this point. And so you're going into these final 3 races now, which are the seeding races for the Olympics. The mindset has shifted from qualify to now, set yourself up for success in Beijing with the seeded group. So it's we're in this mixed zone right now of both. You're still having to think, some athletes, about qualifying, get there, and they're not even considering also when I get there, be in a good position.
Kevin Fishnoller coming up in first place, 34 thousandths ahead of the game. We can see in that 14-15 transition, do you think there's a little bit of snow going into the track? We can kind of see some lines from the sleds as they go through. Did you notice that?
Yeah, for sure. A bit of blowing snow. I think that could be, there we go, a little bit of accumulation. So it could be adding up enough. We'll see. We're talking about a couple thousandths between some of these guys, and there's a tie, right? So it's going to be close.
Going to be close indeed. We've got a German sled coming up next. Chris Eisler has been on the circuit for a few years now, has yet to really, he had a breakout on his first season on the tour. I think he won one of his first World Cups. It kind of was a breakout athlete, but has since then just been trying to stay competitive with these top German athletes.
Yeah, and probably a disappointing season for Chris if he looks back to it of, thinking, okay, I've got an opportunity to grab that 3rd spot for the Olympic team if it's possible, and I think just fell short on a few races probably that he was looking at, and just the way the season fell, right? There was a lot more international races. There's not many German races that were included in the qualification period, so immediately loses that advantage that a German would normally have. Whoa, right on the edge there at a curve 14.
Rally skid at the end of 14, handles it well, didn't freak out that maybe I would have freaked out, would have put my feet right down. He handles it well. In the red, though, puts him way too far back, 2.5 tenths back, keeping Fishnoller in the lead.
Great look of how you have to stay calm on the sled. And Chris, at this point, run was a bit sloppy, and I think he knew that was coming just with his 12-13. The rhythm was off. Line was off a bit going into 12. But definitely fought for it, which is good. That's what you want to see. Oh, it does give love to the mascot. I was thinking he was going to blow him off. There's that corner 11, which comes around there with that late height, pushes him late into 12, which isn't, not the best line. You need that height, but that height comes too late. And then that's where that, it all carries down to 14.
That was impressive. I think, staying that long on the curve and just that slap down afterwards, you can tell, with how many runs and how much competition those German athletes have to get through, they stay calm and cool. Or during my years, that was just not the case. But here's another young athlete trying to find that consistency. Pavel Reppilov, currently sitting 15th. A little bit of a shaky first run overall, decently clean, but again, just looking for that speed that some of his teammates have. He's one of 5 Russian sleds that we've mentioned earlier.
Yeah, following the footsteps of his older brother, and I'm sure trying to chase him down. And eventually, I'm sure we'll see the competition close. And I mean, this would be a great result here if he can sneak into that top 12 group. He throws down a run, but he's got some work to do in the bottom.
Had a crash last year in Sigulda, did not finish. He's right about the same time, comes into the green on Fishnoller. A little bit up and down movement in that Kreisel, but here's that exact moment you're talking about, Sam. You can gain or lose so much time in Kreisel, and he gained almost a 10th just in that last split.
And it could have been bigger, I think. If we see it here into Kreisel, he had a bit of a skid out just as you're cresting that climb up out of 15. The sled started to break away as he was going into 16.
A little slippery right there. It's been for a few people. I hope no one ends up falling. It's kind of those it's those moments that when you end up getting hurt the most when you're slipping out coming out of the track. But right there,
14 staying compact. Yeah, that's here. If it goes long enough, we'll see if it carries up this hill, the replay. But staying all calm there, looks good. But you saw him, he pushed the sled over, and as he's just in that low pressure zone, and the sled jumps over, and then I'm sure he overreacted, and then the sled wanted to break away.
Semyon Pavlichenko, Russia, had the first place start time, pulled a 4.580. 4.575, even faster. I want to check what the start record is, a 4.54. So Seaman with a fast start has some time to play with. We'll see if he can manage standing green. 2/10. What do you think, Sam? You think that'll stand?
Yeah, he came out here charging on the second run for sure, and it starts with the tone he set in the start, right out the handles, quick, fast, and now he's pushing it, building on that lead. He holds on even on that line, just offline, but stays so compact, doesn't even look, uses those sidewalls for reference. He's going for it here. He wants to be in that top 10.
3,500 to 48,393. Almost 3/10 faster than his first run. I mean, that was this. I loved this. I mean, comes out a little soon, hits the wall, doesn't even look. He's not even concerned. Just kind of taps that right wall, stays in his sled. I think that, even when lines are off, it kind of goes to speak, if someone's position is on or comfortability is there, it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah, brings a great energy, and I mean, just so calm on the sled, which is such a skill to have. That's more what he was wanting, right? And that's the run. I wouldn't be surprised to see, Salmon just carry that now, that sort of run, that sort of sliding quality into the Olympics.
It was a 48 again, 393. That would have put him in 5th place for the first run. Sam, do you think the ice has changed? Do you think it's staying the same? Like, is it fair to compare times with the first run?
It's going to be pretty consistent. I feel like the track crew here is so skilled. It's, one thing that's improved significantly over the years is just the quality of the ice. The track preparation they have here in Sigulda is so impressive. So I feel like, we've got a pretty consistent weather pattern here right now. It's not warming up significantly. It's staying pretty, similar. So I feel like they'll have a good handle on it.
Wolfie Kindle battling some back injuries. You mentioned in the first run. He rode the elevator last week from, I think it was 18th to 3rd place, and he already has his pre-nomination for Beijing. So he'll be coasting into the games. He's just looking to get dialed in to pull a medal in China.
Looking good. A couple small things that aren't going to help him when he wants to chase down Semin, but good run overall. Definitely a couple little sections where, Wolfie's perfectionist. He probably wanted to be a bit better, but I mean, with the run that Pavlichenko had, it's tough to be chasing that down. Good view out of 15. Staying calm. You can see no driving with his legs or his handles. He's staying chill.
Simmons' energy, it's palpable. You can feel it through the whole circuit. He manages to stay ahead. He's got about 2/10 of a lead on Kindle, but we're pulling into the top 10 in just a few sleds. We'll see. Oh yeah, see there, that's what we're talking about. Good thing that happened at the end of the race, because a lot of times, I mean, even too, if you drop your sled, like you want to be so careful of those runners, you know, there's no dirt, or I don't know, you're always just thinking about your sled first. Reini Ager sitting in 12th, one of our qualifiers from Nations Cup. Such a nice guy, just a good guy, and everyone just loves when he does well. Nice long paddles at the start. His first start was a 6.7, and he pulled a slightly slower, a 6.8. Not sure if he'll be able to make up that time. He's already 10th back.
Yeah, we'll see this critical 3, 4, 5, 6 if he gets in smooth. That was a pretty decent 6 transition. It's going to be tough to catch Semon's run. That's a beautiful smooth 11, 12, 13 high there on the entrance of 13.
Bleeding time as he goes down, almost, ooh, huge issue out of 15, breaks into a huge skid. He was already...
And he actually lost his visor. I think he lost his visor there.
Oh, wow, you're right. Ooh, I wonder if that happened in 15, if he might have... Did you see him lose it out of 15?
Yeah, it looked like it was, I mean, it looked to me 14, he was normal, and then on the way out of 15, no visor. So I could see him losing his head in 15 and the strap coming off. Obvious disappointment for Reini. So much riding on that.
Oh, it's just pain seeing him throw the sled. There's just so much that goes into this. See if there's a... Looks like his shield is already off.
Yeah, and that can throw you off your game. No wonder he's, you know, that's... You can have 100 runs the exact same through curve 15, and you throw in one of those where you lose your visor and you're going to wonder what's going on. It throws you off. You'll twitch on the way out. You won't be able to see what's going on. Oh, that pains me to see.
Alexander Gorbatsevich currently in 11th, our second fastest Russian sled. Sam, explain really quick, losing your head. What's that feel like from men's start? Because I know from women's start it was terrifying, but from men's start, you know, how could that possibly happen with losing your visor as well?
It happens so fast. I mean, here, especially in 15, it's just, it's a sudden, the amount of pressure you feel is, I can't even express it to people. It's so hard, but it's the sudden push on you, and it's all, it feels like at one point it's all just weighing on your head. And so you can go from what, you know, relatively compact position, head back, chin tucked, and it's a quick punch to the head, and your head will essentially hit the ice, or you know, you'll be flat on the ice. And so just depending where your visor strap is on the back of your helmet, that's what might rub on the ice. And so if that's what rips off, right there, you see Alexander handles it no problem. His head was, he held it through the whole corner, but it can be, it's a strange feeling. And if you're ready for it, then you can handle it. But if it catches you off guard, which in race runs is when you usually get it, then that's when it can really cause some issues.
Had some skidding in this transition right there. It just looked like it could have broken out worse. He managed to save it going straight. I mean, that's an interesting point, right? Like that idea of losing your head and how it can be different on race day. There's not many other places on the circuit where that level of G forces happen, right?
Right. It was, you know, Sigulda. For myself, it was Sigulda. I would feel it, and then the old Zeal corner in Königssee was where you'd really get it. And other than that, you know, that's Luge athletes will be doing a ton of neck strengthening exercises throughout the summer and throughout the season. And as you get more runs in the season, your neck is obviously going to be stronger and stronger. And then finally, we've got, you know, most athletes have a neck strap, which is what will kind of be that last resort of hanging on that. But sometimes it just maxes that line right out.
Gins Berzins getting into our top 10. We've got 3 Latvians within the top 10, which is no surprise considering this is their home track, their bread and butter. They know this well. But Gins Bearsen's flirting with the line of being in green or red. Currently 11 thousandths. If he oof, that is not going to help him with his final time.
Not right before you go into 15 and 16. Obviously, now this is going to be well off the pace. Semon's going to climb into that top 10, which I'm sure he had his eyes on. That's a tough one, but young guy. He's going to be back next year hungrier than ever.
Was looking clean until he hit the bottom of the track. Again, was just kind of dancing between that green and that red line. Kind of started right here, I feel like.
Yeah, just a bit of uneasiness, and that might show the inexperience of a younger guy. Pressure on his home track. He should be dialed on those two exits. 14 and 15 should be consistency, and disappointment for him. And again, probably a lot riding on that run. He's got a teammate coming up right after him here, and that's who knows what is on the line in terms of Olympic spots.
He's currently sitting 11th overall. He's the second fastest Latvian currently, but again, he might have more information, on their discipline and Olympic qualifications for them. But up next is his teammate Rix Rositas, the winner of our Nations Cup yesterday, currently sitting ninth. He pulled a 4.681 with his first run. Slightly slower going in, already 500ths back. I mean, Seaman Pavlichenko really just threw it down.
Right, he charged out of the gate, and Rix is never going to be the guy known to be fast out of the start, but where does he make it up in his driving capabilities and his, he's got the size to carry that momentum down the track if he drives a clean line. Sounded a bit rough through the labyrinth there. Issues that's a late line into 12, but he's got it back in 13. See if he can claw it back. I think that's going to be too much of a deficiency to get back into that green. Will he hold it in front of Gins?
Stays ahead of his teammate. Gins comes up in second place. 1800th back. Was just too much of a deficit to make up. Thought he might have been making up time towards the bottom, but it just kept losing. Look at that. Not even concerned. Not even looking. Except right at the end.
It's what you expect on a home track. You expect an athlete to come out and feel so comfortable. They don't even have to, your body knows what to do without even telling it. And so that's that's what you're trying to strive for as a luge athlete. Get to that level of comfort where your mind is no longer directing the body what to do. Just you've taken so many runs, you've done it so many times, just let the sled go. Let your body drive the sled down without getting the mind in the way. That's some sports psych talk for everyone out there.
Yeah, pay attention because you just heard that from an Olympic silver medalist. People pay lots of money to hear Olympic medalists speak, and you heard it for free. Up next, we've got Johannes Ludwig, our current overall leader. Oof, looks like he didn't get in that last set of paddles. 3,000ths back. He still pulls not a fast start. He still pulls decently fast, but I think that last pad, did I see that right, Sam?
So, yeah, I hope we see a replay. I was looking over at the ticker just to see what the time was going to be and missed it, but he's well off the pace that he would normally set. That's just one of those, Johannes has had such a solid season this year. He's got to have one mistake here or there, possibly pushing the sled set up, trying to find the limit of what he can run. You can see he's all over the place. Whoa, way up to the boards.
Huge issues in that 15. Wow. Yeah, almost hit Woods up there. Lost a ton of time. Not something we've seen from him all season. He's got 4 World Cup wins. He won last week in Winterberg. What do you think's going through his mind right then? Do you think he's feeling that, on a mental level, or do you think he's just ready to move on?
Well, he's going to feel, reflect on what happened here at the start specifically if we see it, but he's going to just walk away from this one. Let it be a bit of a wash, I'm sure, in his mind. but also learn from it. What was the sled? What was going on? What did he try different? There's a couple jumps in there, and you can see the sled bounce around a bit. But still, that's very uncharacteristic of Johannes Ludwig. All good. He's healthy in mind and body, and I bet he'll come back next week, and we'll see some good results on his home track.
He's got over 100 points ahead of Kindle in the overall. And Kindle also didn't have his best race. This might shake some things up in terms of overall points. But next up, we have David Gleicher, our Olympic champion from Korea, currently sitting 7th, hoping to expand, to have a better lead. His little brother is beating him. How do you think he feels about that? Do you think there's some brotherly competitiveness in there?
They probably go at it, I'm sure. I wonder if if they're roommates on the road or what. They'd have to break up too many fights in the bedroom.
David Gleicher currently in the green.
Whoa, that's way up there. That's not the line you want in 10.
Dropping back 0.04 of a second. Big issues at the top of the track. Is it? Ooh, yeah, getting slightly worse.
Hey, this can be bad there. He's got it back under control, but this is something we've seen of David this year. He's had just runs where he just makes these mistakes that you just don't, where do they come from? Because that line through the labyrinth looked totally fine, and then all of a sudden he's at the boards in curve 10.
So frustrating coming from, the amount of accomplishment that he's had in his career. Luckily for him, he already is pre-nominated for his Beijing spot. Probably doesn't help the situation. He's still frustrated, wants to find that momentum and kind of consistency with sled setup. Because these athletes, for the ones that are nominated, they're probably still testing things, right? Going into Beijing, they're just trying to solidify what they have.
Right. There's that line in 10, which is way too high. And then a bump on 11, which throws him off. And yeah, he's probably just, at this point, you're talking about figuring out different potential scenarios for what Beijing could be like, and then trying out different setups, maybe trying something you hadn't ridden all year. This is a tricky time of the year for sure.
Max Langenhahn trying to fight his way into the top 5. He's got almost half a tenth on Pavlyuchenko. Pavlyuchenko was in 14th place, I want to add, and he has just moseyed his way into the top 7. We'll see if it'll be enough to put him into the top 5. Already back 700th. I don't think he'll be able to make that up.
No, Salmon threw down. He put down the run that he needed. I'm sure he's going to be hunting down that top 5 now. And Max, I think just right from the start, looked a bit tight, looked a bit hesitant. The start, when you see a guy that slows down a bit on the second run, you want to see that opposite. You want to see him charge out of the handles and get that faster start time.
Simon knocks down another one, almost a tenth behind. Max Langenhahn comes up in second. Wow, Pavlyuchenko really does have a lead on these guys. We'll be coming up on our top 5 sleds. A good look at Max's 14-15.
And now that we see it, Kate, you can see that maybe we are talking a bit of ice quality as well now. Just seeing some, a bit of a frost layer on that out of 14.
Not interested. Get out of my face. Max says about the run. We've seen a lot of those reactions from these athletes. Emotions are just heightened. It's a big weekend. Again, FIL extended the qualification times into Sigulda, 2 World Cups into this year, where normally Sam mentioned these teams are named by Christmas time. So it's just a different type of year for these athletes. They're having to adjust to different races, different tracks, and we've had a healthy variety of tracks this year, not just all German tracks, as we've mentioned before. But getting into our top 5, this is it for everyone watching. Nico Gleicher from Austria, currently 2/10 back from the gold medal position, but Pavlyuchenko threw down, wasn't even looking for half of his run. I still don't know how he does it. And Nico Gleicher is in the track, staying in the green. We'll see how much time he has. Losing time.
purposely stayed quiet there. I wanted to hear how he goes through 5, 6, and this is going to be a big run for Nico. Obviously trying to hold that lead, but just also finding that edge of how far can he push the sled setup. Nice exit out of curve 15.
Hanging on slightly. This Kreisel will be huge to see if he keeps his lead. A little bit of a skid, lost just a little bit of amount of time, but not enough. He manages to keep his position, a top 5. Wow, Nico Gleicher was in first place last week in Winterberg, dropped to second, and now has secured a 5th place. This is huge for the young Austrian slider.
I'm sure as they're talking Olympic team, that is a big result for him. So that's why he's showing, emotion right there at the finish line as he's coming up. And really nice run, just consistent the whole way down, holds it. Really does drive a solid line and just seems so calm on the sled. And, just seeing his brother go a couple sleds before that, David seems to overreact sometimes, drive the sled a bit too hard here and there, whereas Nico just seems a bit more calm on the sled. And it could just be mindset right now. It could be a bunch of things, right? But David seems to this year have been just trying hard to be fast, whereas Nico just seems like he's just going and being fast.
Roman Reppilov currently in 4th. He's 3rd overall in points, and he is our past world champion. I mean, he's kind of got it all when it comes to sliding. He's got that fast start. He knows how to drive. He also just has a fun personality. It's fun to see, different personalities in the sport. But he's got a 10th to play with on Gleicher. With a clean run, he should maintain this lead.
Yeah, a little high there in curve 10. Back under control in 11, 12 into 13. A nice straight line. This is going to be good. This is the run you want. If you can clean out of 15, up into 16 is going to be key.
We're cutting it close. A little bit of a banana line coming out of 15. This Kreisel is going to tell everything. Oh, he gained time. Wow, Sam, you're right. That Kreisel really does it. He was slowly losing time, and he gained it all back with 700ths in the bank.
He really cleaned it up. He had a bit of a rough 10, 11, but then from 11 down, he just let the sled run, and you can see right there, perfect line going into 15. Out of here, a little bit of a small twitch over that bump. You can see the sled jumps left a bit, but he handles it so calmly. Some guys might overreact there and give it a big correction, and then the sled will break away, whereas Roman, so calm on the sled, just lets it run.
This is putting pressure on our top 3. Dominic Fishnoller getting ready at the top of the track, getting ready for that flat start ramp that we mentioned. Roman is going to be fighting for that top 3. I see a lot in the Russian suits. They have that hole in the back. I saw it impressed Ronan as well. Don't know if that's something in the sauce that they, with their speed secrets, something going on. But Dominic...
Yeah, maybe a bit more mobility.
Yeah, that's true too. Dominic Fishnoller currently sitting 3rd, got 3rd here last year. Has had some, results where he'll punch into the medals and then he'll usually stay within top 10, but he won a sprint World Cup earlier this year on someone else's sled. Something I've personally never seen before, but right here he's managing to stay in the lead with 600ths to play with.
Yeah, and for the top 5, I was sitting, and now for these guys, I'm standing, because this is going to come down to the wire between Dominic and Felix. But who's going to stand atop the podium here? Dominic's throwing down a great run so far.
He's cleaning up the time. He's in the green, well into the green, almost 2/10. He's tied with Felix Locke. This really puts the pressure on Felix to throw down as well. But Dominic, he's just incredible driving. I mean, you can always just expect clean lines from this guy.
Clean and consistent. Like, that's the position that you've seen Dominic slide in the past 10 years. He always looks so good on the sled, so calm from the body, from the hips down. His legs are never moving, bouncing around in a perfect toe point. He's got it. And I mean, the only thing is, I'm wondering here, Felix on the first run had a bit of a bump on the start. You know, you didn't really see it. He scrubbed the right wall at the start, which can be a lot of time. And so we'll see if Dominic just built up enough of a buffer to hold off Felix.
You see those German coaches just lined up, ready to watch their golden boy. He's one of the most accoladed German sliders there's ever been. Those long paddles, those long famous paddles. He's got such a fast start, 4.604. Very similar, if not identical, to his first run. But Dominic really put the pressure on him. We'll see if he can show up for his run.
Critical to get through that 5.6 pretty smooth. See how he handles this labyrinth. It's posed the challenge to a couple people. Nice line, so smooth. That sled runs so smooth as it goes into 12. Felix is looking good there.
Almost
putting the head back.
Almost exact same split. It's within thousandths of a second. He was 8 thousandths ahead. Now he's 6 thousandths back. This Kreisel is gonna change everything.
I think he's got it. That was a perfect Kreisel. There it is.
Just barely. I thought Dominic was gonna give him a run for his money. 15 thousandths of a second over 2 runs. That's like, what is that, a snap? Is that a blink of the eye? What is that?
A blink, I think. I can't even imagine, but that was cat and mouse the whole way down. And he turned it on from 11 down. He just threw on the jets in terms of he drove a perfect line from the bottom down, allowed himself to build speed. He's finding the mojo just at the right time going into the final couple races of the year with the big one at the end.
Big one at the end. His eyes are set on that. He's looking for, would it be his third consecutive? Is he 2-time?
Well, it wouldn't be consecutive because of Korea. He had that mishap on the last run there.
That's right.
Yeah, Vancouver, Sochi, and then this would be three golds that he's looking for.
Big year for Felix Locke, and he is showing up for it here in Sigulda. Puts all the pressure on the hometown hero, Christers Apperiodes. He is a winner of a World Cup in Sochi, has managed to stay within top 5 results for the season. Everyone in his country is watching him on TV. Unfortunately, they can't be at the track today, but he's got 600ths to play with. He knows this track well. If he drives clean, he should hang on.
3, a bit of a big skid. That's almost like a hockey stop, but he's carrying some good speed. This is going to be a critical section. 11. If you can get this nice line into 12, you can let the sled run, get it turned in 13. He does it.
1600ths on that last split. Is having no problems with this run, only gaining time on almost 0.2 of a second.
Right on the left. This should be enough. He's got it.
Huge win.
What a big win.
Huge win.
Big win for Latvia. That's so great.
That is his second win this year. The young Latvian. The Latvian program is really just showing up. You can see. I wish there was a ton of fans here that would be just freaking out for him right now. But just know, Christers, everyone's freaking out at home, watching on TV. That was incredible.
That feels good. Winning at home always feels good, and especially when you've got, you're building up for a big event, and he's just going to feel more and more confidence in the sled and in his sliding ability. And look at that body type. He's a luge athlete's dream right there. Big, tall, long, and he throws down. That's what you want to see on your home track. Perfect position coming out of 14 down into that long straightaway into 15. It's a good feeling. Good for him.
His sister right there. So excited for him. Luge runs in the family here in Latvia. That is so cool. Currently he is sitting 5th overall. I'm sure this win will give him a nice bump up. It might put him 4th overall. But here's a good look at our final results. Wasn't really close from 1st to 2nd. Almost 0.2 ahead. Christers Apperiodes, Dominic and Felix, they really duked it out towards the end, and then we've got a Latvian just squeaking in to that top 10, and then everyone else just fell behind. It turned out to be an interesting race today. Luckily, the ice stayed consistent for these athletes. But you know, some of the athletes we thought were going to do well kind of ran into some issues. What was your overall take on these men's results?
Really interesting race. I mean, we definitely saw the start list shuffle around there after run 2, and great for Christos here. And I think just starting to see some of these guys who maybe didn't have a start to the season. Roman Reppilov, Felix has been there, but just I think things are coming into place for some of the guys. Dominic's just really finding his mojo now, back on his own sled. So it's going to get tight going into these last couple of races, and I think we've got a good idea who some of the favorites are going into Beijing for sure.
A good look at our leaderboard, not our leaderboard, excuse me, our winners for the race. I was just checking the overall standings, looking who did well in Yangqing, because again, each track is just so different from the other. So, these athletes might do well on one track, but it really just comes down to Beijing this year. So for these top winners right here, they're going to be dialing in their sled, trying to make sure that they are comfortable, because again, I mean, it's 4 runs for the Olympics, right? It's not just 2. You've got to have the consistency over all 4. Take a look at our current standings. I was correct. Christopher Aprio just moved up into 4th place. Dominic dropped back into 6th place. But a lot of these athletes, nice shuffling on the overall as well. So for these overall standings, Sam, what does this play going into Beijing? Does this affect the start draw, right?
Yeah, this will impact your seeding going into the Olympic Games now. The final 3 races, not including the sprint races. So that's kind of key to know, is that it's just now, World Cup starts. So this is, overall World Cup. This is with the sprint included.